So we've got a little bit of Q&A. We've got a little bit of mailbag here, working through some comments. And one of the questions was, Fritz, miniature wargaming. We know about the primary systems that you play, but do you play any other war games, or have you tried out any other war games, and what are your thoughts on them? And I thought this was a really interesting question, because while I tend to focus primarily on BattleTech and Warhammer 40K, Chain of Command, there are other systems that I really, really enjoy playing, and I want to push out more content for, and I intend to push out more content. The problem is there's just not enough time to play all these war games, plus get my board game in, plus get my RPG D&D in. I mean, I need to just do this full time and just play lots of games full time. That's the goal. So I would say my primary systems right now that I'm playing would be Warhammer 40K and BattleTech. I love the narrative for both of them. The community is really strong, both offline and online. I've got the models, I've got the miniatures, I've got the terrain. You're always adding more. I mean, there's a lot that I can play in that narrative and really, really enjoy. Second to that would be historicals, Chain of Command. And I love Chain of Command World War II. I think it is the best miniature wargaming rule set, and that's saying a lot. I think it's much better than 40K. I think it's much better than BattleTech. And it's hard for me it's not hard to say that with the rules for Warhammer 40,000. They've always been a hot mess. But I think the BattleTech rules are solid. I think they're good. I mean, every rule system has its quirks. So to say Chain of Command is superior to BattleTech, in many ways, yeah, it's good. So I really enjoy the rule set tremendously, but I don't play it as much because historicals are a different beast entirely. And I pushed this up previously with one of my other podcasts, I think from a couple of weeks back. Historicals are not fair. Historicals are, we don't have 2,000 PowerPoints and we each buy an army. Historical is like, what time period are you playing? What's the battle you're playing? You might be completely outnumbered, completely outgunned. You're probably going to lose this mission, but this is history. You're trying to recreate history and say, okay, historically, here were the decisions made at this point in time. What decisions are you going to make? How are you going to play it out? So I find with historicals, you have to be able to let the ego go a lot more. You have to be able to step back and say, look, I might not win this mission, or the converse, if you're playing the side that is overwhelming, to realize you have tremendous advantages. You're not a god of war. You have tremendous advantages. A lot of people have trouble wrapping their head around that fact from the historical perspective. I also find it, on a personal note, I'm looking for the right words to capture it. I find it a lot more taxing mentally, because this isn't stuff that is a made-up narrative in the far future. This isn't Warhammer 40K. I mean, this is living history. I'm even playing DBA, DBN, Roman times and Napoleonics, ancients. This is living history. So having that respect and exploring that respect, giving that respect due, it's not something that I would necessarily just casually play. I find it takes a lot more, taxes a lot more. So that would be a system down one a little bit below 40K and BattleTech. Then we get into Wings of Glory. Wings of Glory World War I is almost kind of on its own. It's a fun rule set. The planes are pre-painted. It's a great game in that you can play as many as you want on each side. Literally 10 and 10. I mean, we had a game a little while ago, 8 players on one side, 9 or 10 players on the other. And the way it works is everyone programs their planes how they're going to move. So you spend 3 or 4 minutes programming your planes. Then everybody moves at the same time. Everybody shoots at the same time. The game scales tremendously well for multiple players. Plus it's pre-painted. Plus it's World War I Knights of the Sky, a fun tech level. I love it. I want to play more Wings of Glory. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love Wings of Glory. Pacific Rim. This is something that I jumped into. and it's still very much a work in progress. I love the IP. I love the narrative. The miniatures are heroic scale. The rule system is solid enough. It's got its couple of little quirks here, but it works, and it's a rule system built from the ground up, so it's interesting with how it works. What's holding me back is, not holding me back, because I just played a game yesterday with a friend, why it's still in development, and I would say it's a secondary system for now, and I see it potentially being a primary system, is first, it's heroic scale. The miniatures are pre-painted, and they're really big. So I just can't pull out the Battletech buildings because they're not the right scale. I can't pull out my 40K stuff because it's not the right scale. I can't pull out my historical. It's not the right scale. I've got to invest in new terrain, and I want to have a whole bunch of new terrain sets. That's not a bad thing. That's a great thing. It's going to motivate you. But I'm spending time building up that terrain. The other challenge is Wave 1 has been released. It was a Kickstarter. It's gone to retail. Everything's going to be in retail. Wave 1's been released. We're waiting on Wave 2. So right now, the most you can throw down is 3 Jaegers and 3 Kaiju on each side. Pushing that to play, that's not, 3 or 4. 4 on each side. 4 on each side. That's not bad. 3 on each side. Well, I have to go look at my gaming case. But pushing that out, we don't have the diversity of here's your 10 or 15 Kaiju and 10 or 15 Jaegers. That's coming in Wave 2 and Wave 3. So I expect that to self-correct over time. That's good. Not everything has been released because it allows me to work on the terrain, work on my tactics, but I'm enjoying it. I'm feeling it. I'm really, really impressed and really, really loving the system for the ease of play and how it plays. So that's a secondary system right now, but it might be a contender for the first. The other 3 wargaming systems that I play and I love, but they don't hit the table that much because the stars literally need to align to make it happen. The first being Mordheim. This was a GW title when the old world was still alive, but I guess we're bringing back the old world. You build a warband. You go into the city looking for these weird stone shards because the Comet of Sigmar crashed into the city. And it's an interesting game. It wants to play in a campaign, meaning you have your warband, and as you complete a mission, you get points to buy experience and buy equipment. It plays almost like an RPG in a miniature skirmish game. The terrain is very dense. The game takes a little while to play, although it's not completely unrealistic. It's the type of thing that we play 3 or 4 times a year. I get together with a couple of friends. We've got our war bands. It's mostly a one-off. So we'll say, hey, create a war band at this level, and let's play 3 or 4 scenarios and see at the end of the day where we stand. We don't have the time for a full campaign. I mean, that's how it was designed. You don't have to play it that way, but it kind of wants to do that. But I certainly love the narrative. I love the IP. I love the feel of it. It's the closest thing to kind of a grimdark role-playing game that's a skirmish type game. Second to that is Judge Dredd miniatures. I love the Dredd universe. I love the silliness of the miniature system on there. I love kind of the narrative of the different gangs. They're each crazy and unique enough that you feel like you're playing something special. There's a lot of ownership in there as opposed to oh, look, this is just another faction that looks different and they have one extra special rule. No, each faction is completely and very well done and thought out. I've got kind of 2 terrain sets, one that's kind of the wasteland and one that's kind of this theme park, kind of Central Park-ish type Mega City 1. But you got to know Dredd. I mean, it's the type of thing, the rules are easy enough to pick up, but the narrative is so there. I mean, the narrative is so there that if you don't really kind of understand Judge Dredd, you're like, wait, why are we doing this? What's going on? One of the missions, though, that is fun to play is this Cursed Earth mission where zombies are just pouring out. And it's literally like a survival mode going against tons and tons of zombies. So I pull in the Black Plague Zombicide Black Plague, I pull in kind of Zombicide Modern, those figures, and we literally throw hundreds and hundreds and hundreds real-time zombies on the table. See if your warband can survive, or, this is your rookie test, and see as Justice Department, as a street judge, can you pull it off? How long you can last? I mean, it's always a fun scenario to play. But again, it's the system that I play the least, but I would love to play more of it. I want to play more of it simply because it's a lot of fun, and I love the IP. The third system, Aliens. Aliens versus Predator. Aliens Colonial Marines. I've got the AVP board game, first edition. A lot of those miniatures, when it was discontinued, I was able to pick up a lot more. The miniatures themselves are fantastic. We've converted them over to skirmish and war games. And there's just something, yes, admittedly, Conan, Aliens versus Predator. I love the IPs. I love playing in it. But when I set up the table, and this is a game a couple of times a year we play it, I set up the gaming table. It's kind of this Starfield muted space map. So we put that out, and it blends really nice where as soon as you start putting terrain on it, the Starfield kind of becomes muted. So it kind of looks like Acheron, or like some sort of really dark planetoid. I have some fish tank terrain that I've spray painted and converted. So we put a bunch of that out for rock formations and crazy stuff. And then we've got 2 or 3 little sci-fi bunker bases, and I've got like a crashed starship. So we set up the table, and it's like, here's your Colonial Marines, here's your civilians, and we're just going to throw like waves of aliens at you. And we've got a couple of spawn points. We've got some AI that, depending on the alien type, plays it out a certain way. That with the hidden spawn points and activation of spawn points that move to represent like aliens just appearing anywhere. I can put down a lot of aliens. I could put down like 60 or 70 aliens. It's crazy. It's fun. And I really love playing that. The rule system, we bounce around between a couple of different generic sci-fi rule systems. It's more the narrative. It's more how it looks on the table. And the rules kind of work, but I won't say there's anything really special or over the top about them. It's more about the aliens experience. I would love to play that more. If you're like, Fritz, let's do some aliens. Bam, it's set up. It's ready to go. But the challenge there is, again, it's an IP that you really have to like. You really have to love and know yourself to play. So pushing that mailbag out, that's kind of on the wargaming side, the systems that I play. The systems that I currently enjoy playing. And while Blackstone Fortress doesn't count as a miniatures type game, even though it's utilizing miniature concepts, games like Conan the board game, that's a miniature skirmish game. Absolutely on the rules, but you can pull those in to play Conan miniatures. Some of that happens here and there because I believe in trying to get the most out of your miniature collection. But as with always and everything, depending on your narrative and what you feel in the community, there's always going to be this like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 of games that you enjoy playing.